happens in Spain in the summer. You know, that's what we expect. We don't want it to be any different. So in today's video, I'm going to talk. So we've talked about quite a few cases lately. The particular case, of course, that I'm thinking of is the case of Preston Davey. That poor little baby who was red-rummed by his adoptive dads, or certainly one of them. And that is, I call him Monster Dad number one. I won't be mentioning his name. I won't be showing a photo of him because he's gone in the hellhole as far as my channel's concerned. But he really has gone into the hellhole because he has been sent to one of Britain's two what are known as monster mansions. These are the most notorious prisons in the UK. That's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about Wakefield prison and we're going to talk about Frankland prison. These are the two monster mansions of the UK. The prisoners that are kept in these maximum security facilities are the worst of the worst. They're the murderers. They're the one that multiple offenders. These two prisons have housed the most infamous criminals from British history, really, at some point or another, and they're still infamous, notorious killers in these prisons. People on whole life tariffs, for example, people that have committed such serious crimes. But there are, there is an honour, if you like, amongst even murderers, isn't there? There is a code. You're not supposed to hurt children. This is a big thing. Some criminals still have the code, not women or children. But to be honest, probably a lot of the killers that are in these prisons, it's probably women that they've killed. But worse than that, they may have killed their girlfriend, or they may have killed some random woman that they just happened to come across. But what they don't like is people that do things to children, do they? So this is a big no-no. It's like the worst thing in sort of criminal world that you can do is hurt a child, or RMPE a child, hurt them anyway in an SEX way, etc. So there's been a couple of high-profile red rooms in prison. Oh, my picture disappeared there for a minute. A couple that we're going to talk about, murder in prison, though it wasn't in one of these prisons. I don't think. I'll check in a moment. Is a Gussie Huntley, so a murderer who murdered Holly and Jessica all those years ago, and he was in prison for life. He was killed not long ago by an inmate. Let me just have a look. Frankland. So he was in, not Wakefield, but Frankland. These are he was in one of the monster mansions. So, and this is what we're going to talk about. So there's a few things that we're going to discuss. Is it right? Is prison justice right? Do we welcome it? Is there like a celebration when something like that happens? Of course, Ian Watkins as well, not long ago, the singer from the Lost Prophets, who RAPD'd a baby. He was murdered recently. There's another high-profile one recently that we're going to talk about a little bit in this video. Is it right? I mean, there's the human part of us always welcomes it. These people are horrible people, have done horrible things. And of course, in the UK now, we don't have the death penalty. A lot of people might see the death penalty returned. I personally am not one of them. I don't believe in the death penalty, but there's always a lot of you when you hear of, you don't cry for these people, do you? When you hear that they've been murdered or attacked in prison, it's hard to feel any sympathy for them. Well, you can't really. Maybe for their families. Some of them, they have families who I'm sure love them and didn't realise they were going to end up doing things like this. Some of them probably have children themselves. That's the irony of it. So we have to think about how they might feel. But yes, a lot to debate, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to debate it, and we've probably several of us have got different views on this. Please feel free, obviously, to express your view as long as it's respectful. But taking a life is a serious thing. When someone takes a life, that's why they end up in prison with life sentences. Is it right for someone else to take their lives? I don't know. This is what we're going to talk about. And we're going to talk about the pros and cons of British justice. And do you think it is, do you think sometimes even these prison staff themselves, do they leave doors open, turn a blind eye? I was very struck by how people, when you see the CCTVs from the prisons about these murders, these prisoners, they're just sort of wandering around, and I don't know, you just think, well, are they deliberately being left? There's no prison officer in sight. Surely there should, every CCTV clip that gets shown, there should be a prison officer somewhere in view. Or shouldn't I be thinking like that? It just makes you think, are they deliberately not around? Or are they so short-staffed they can't put enough prison officers in there? Anyway, these are the sort of things we're going to talk about. Right, okay, first of all, let me do my thank you. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing. Those are the free ways you can help my channel. Special thank you to those of you by Ko-fi's. The Ko-fi link is in the chat, and also those of you who are members, thank you. If you want to join, we've got members live coming up every second Thursday. We have a exclusive member stream. If you want to join in or watch the video afterwards, please become a member. Thank you to those of you who bought merchandise. So on my Ko-fi page, that's where you can see my merchandise. You can buy mugs such as this one. I'm not in the mood for twonks today. I think I'm going to have to do some with Monster on them as well. I've got anything on these mugs. So, but only design. Good one, I think, would be sort of off you go to Monster Mansion or something like that. Adios amigo, see you at Monster Mansion, because it is quite satisfying that verdict we had this week of Preston Davey's dad's, particularly Monster Dad 1, who he's gone to one of these Monster Mansions. He's gone to Wakefield prison. He's already there. He'll be in solitary confinement because people would definitely be trying to get hold of him. So it's quite a satisfying verdict because he was given a whole life tariff. And these verdicts, they count, don't they? Because although it doesn't this beautiful baby back, it doesn't bring Preston back. We can't change that. We just can't. So there's no point really. But it does feel good that it's been recognised, the weight of what he did, and he's been found guilty and been sent off there to Monster Mansion and see what happens to him there. So yeah, thank you to those of you who have PayPal me, sent me nice emails, left nice comments. Just thank you for every positive way you contribute to my channel. Thank you so much. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. So let's take the banner off. Oh, always clicking the wrong buttons. Hello, you lovely lurkers. Thank you for watching. Hello to Replay Crew. Again, thank you for watching. Please don't forget to leave your DNA on the like button on this video. And now I'm going to come into the chat. There's a couple of you in the chat. Let's see. Don't forget to let me know, what you think about it all. So, hi, Daniel. Happy Sunday. Yep. Happy Sunday. Hope you're having a good Sunday. Hi, Kelly. Hi, Darren. So, thank you all for being here in the chat. More people will probably come in as we go along. I will say hello to everyone. If I don't say hello to you the first time you come into the chat, say something again, because sometimes I have got the chat in front of me on my phone, so I am trying to keep up with the chat. So where do we start? Let's have a look at these places now. Of course, because we don't have the death penalty anymore in the UK, the prisons probably getting quite full, aren't they? Because sometimes it feels like society has got more aggressive. There's more murders, more sort of murders that would have probably qualified for the death penalty. I wasn't the last person to experience the death penalty. I think was Ruth Ellis. She killed her ex-boyfriend, didn't she? He was a right twat, of course. He wasn't very nice, but you can't go around killing people just because they're twats, can you? As much as you might feel like it. So she went off and shot her ex-boyfriend because he was seeing other women and he was treating her badly, etc. And I think she was not only, of course, it was unusual because Ellis was a woman. Not many women have been hanged. Of course, that was the UK's method of execution, was hanging. There's the executioner, very interesting book that I read years ago from him. Pierpoint, I think, in his name. Let's have a look. Yeah, Albert Pierrepoint or Pierrepoint. English hangman executed. That is like, can we think of him as a serial killer? I mean, these are debates that we have. What happened to Albert when he went to the pearly gates? He'd legitimately killed between 435. I mean, when I say legitimately, within the boundaries of the law. Hi, David. He'd killed between 435 people and 600 people. So that's even more than Shipman, isn't it? Dr. Shipman. So it makes you wonder, I mean, who goes, how you sort of could think, how can you do it? Because maybe, was he some sort of psychopath? And he just found, like Dexter, he found a legitimate legal way of killing people. And of course, not all those people, the most notable example, of course, of a person who was innocent but was hanged was Timothy Evans. So in the case, Dr. John, typical, isn't it? The Dr. John Christie from 10 Rillington Place. If you've ever seen the movie, you should watch it. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. It's chilling. He got away with murder, literally. He murdered Timothy Evans' wife. And then Timothy Evans was charged with it. I think he even confessed because he had a very low IQ. And Dr. Christie talked him into virtually the fact that he'd done it, or he ended up confessing to it. Anyway, he was hung. This guy with a very low IQ, and then you've got Dr. Christie at a time when doctors were like gods. Dr. Christie was performing illegal abortions in the back, in his home. He was also sex abusing women in there, drugging them, giving them gas, killing them. Then he ended up murdering his wife. So in the end, Timothy Evans was exonerated, and Christie was in fact hung himself as well. But couldn't bring Timothy Evans back, could it? So this is, one of the reasons why a lot of people don't agree with the death penalty, because if there is a miscarriage of justice, which I know there are not so many, and certainly not in these days of DNA, but there was a guy released just recently for RAPE, wasn't he? Been in prison about 18 years. And now the real culprit has finally been sort of charged. So, miscarriages of justice do happen. And if somebody's been executed, of course, you can't exonerate them, can you? I mean, you can't bring them back and give them their settlement or whatever. So that's one of course, the reasons against corporal punishment. But going back to Albert Pierrepoint, he wrote a very interesting book. I read his book about his life. It is interesting. So he had a 25-year career that ended in 1956. So there must have been another executioner after him, because they didn't abolish the death penalty until the 60s, was it? So because I remember that the Moors murderers, Brady and Hindley, they literally were lucky to not be executed, because the death penalty had just been abolished, I think, before they were caught. And let's just have a look at Albert Pierrepoint. So I don't know if I might be able to find a photo somewhere. So Pierrepoint, it's pronounced. Albert Pierrepoint. He died in 1992. He was an English hangman who executed between 435 and 600 people in a 25-year career. And his father, Henry, and his uncle Thomas, they were hangmen before him. So, you just think, oh God, you go into the family business. Your dad's a carpenter, so you become a carpenter, then your son becomes a carpenter. For this guy, his father and his uncle were also hangmen. This was the family business by the sound of it. Anyway, he was born in Yorkshire in 1905, and he died in Southport in England on the 10th of July 1992. He lived a long life. 87 years old he was when he died. Wonder how they treat, how does God, how God looks upon that. It's interesting, isn't it? These are legal murders, but they're still murders, aren't they? So anyway, apparently he was an executioner and a publican. So he had a pub as well. God. So his first execution was in December 1932 alongside his uncle Tom. And in October 1941, he undertook his first hanging as the lead executioner. I think I'm going to share this. I'm just reading this from Wikipedia. Because I don't know all this information. It's almost a video in itself, isn't it? Talking about Pierrepoint. Let me share it, because it's got a photo of him on it as well. Interesting. I mean, that's it. Who do you get to be an executioner? It's not something many people would want to do, is it? As much as we sort of agree with, I say most of us probably don't shed many tears when a murderer is killed in prison, especially a child murderer. I think we would struggle to do it this. Oh, that's right, David. The pub was called The Last Drop. Yeah, the pub that he owned. Yeah, it's interesting. And I don't know if you know, sorry, just waffling as usual. Where they were kept, when people were on death row, and they weren't on death row for years like they are in America, etc. Where they were kept, it was a little room where they used to play cards with the guards. What they didn't know at that time was literally where they would be hung was right next door. It wasn't a question of the Green Mile, if you've ever seen that film, where they walk them down the corridor. And no, they literally opened this door that was right next door to where they'd been playing with the guards, not knowing that literally on the other side of that door, they'd been and they will have weighed them, judged the noose, all this kind of thing. That's the news was that they literally opened the door, walked through, and there they were, and then they were dead. No messing about, Asked if they had any last words, put a bag over their head. It's quite brutal, really, isn't it? And of course, yeah, and men and women, so, and Ruth Ellis was the last person to be hanged, wasn't she? I think. I'm going to check that in a minute. Yeah, so he hanged 200 people who'd been convicted of war crimes, several high-profile murderers, the Blackout Ripper, Gordon Cummins, John Haig, the Acid Bath murderer, and John Christie, the Rillington Place strangler. So he actually hung John Christie. I don't know if he also hung Timothy. Yeah, Timothy Evans, Derek Bentley, he was another one that was contentious. Ruth Ellis, executions for high treason. Lord Haw, William George, John Emery, and Theodore Sturt for treachery. So he retired after a dispute with a sheriff over payment. He ran a pub in Lancashire, and he wrote his memoirs in 1974, where he concluded that that's going to come up with our pros and cons when we talk about capital punishment and things like that. It's not a deterrent, is it really? I don't think it stopped people from murder. I think when people are at the point of murdering someone, they just lose their head, don't they? They've lost their head even if it's a planned murder. I personally don't think capital punishment deters people. Anyway, that's what he said in his book. He said that execution was sacred. Yeah, and there was a 2005 film, Peer Points, in which he was portrayed by Timothy Spall, who of course is a very good actor. So yeah, interesting. So apparently, who's Henry? His father Henry was removed from the list of executioners in July 1910 after arriving drunk at a prison the day before the execution. Anyway, maybe we need to do a video. I could go on I could end up doing the whole video on this guy. So I'm not going to do that. So who was the last person to be hanged? So that's a whole nother video, isn't it? About the death penalty. Is it legitimate, etc. We'll sort of brush on that a little bit. So people have strong views about rights. There are people who believe the death penalty should be re-established, other people who believe that it shouldn't. And I think to be hanged in the UK were Peter Allen and Gwyn Evans on August the 13th, 1964, convicted of the murder of John Allen West, and they were executed simultaneously. Bloody hell. A double execution at Walton Park Prison in Liverpool and Strangeways Prison in Manchester. So they were executed in different prisons, but at the same time. And Ruth Ellis was the last woman to be hanged. So what year was it? 1964. So yeah, then the death penalty was abolished. So the Moors murderers, Brady and Hindley, they didn't face the death penalty. And they both died in prison. Now, I think there's a case as well to think, yeah, it's good that people just are left to languish in prison as well. They should be made to suffer. A lot of people who are against the death penalty, one of the reasons they're against it is they think it's over too quick for these people. They want them to suffer, and being in prison for your whole life, and having to look over your shoulder all the time, in case somebody's going to come for you and kill you, it can be a worse punishment. Having said that, when you look at Hindley, Myra Hindley had a great time in prison, didn't she? Because, she had lovers, she had escape plots. I don't know that she suffered. She was always trying to get out of prison. She campaigned long and hard to be released, but she was never released. She had that idiot Lord Longford, who would, I don't know how she got him under her thrall. He was campaigning, wasn't he, for a release. I think it was at a time when people did believe that people could be rehabilitated. And of course, hi Joanne. So I've got distracted there. Hi Joanne. God, what was I saying? Oh, yeah, so it was at a time, there was a time, wasn't there, when it was thought that people could be rehabilitated. And I think with Myra Hindley, a lot of people just couldn't believe that a woman could be that horrible. But she was actually worse, in my opinion, than Brady, because she was the one that used to lure the children into the car. Brady wouldn't have been able to lure those children because they went with Myra because, well, one of them, I think it was Pauline Reed, actually knew Myra. The other victims, children will get in a car with a woman, won't they? She's all nicey to them. But, so she's worse in my opinion because she facilitated what Ian Brady did. She knew exactly what he was going to do to the children. She participated in the Leslie Ann Downey, thank God. I mean, it's harrowing. But those tapes that were found of Leslie Ann Downey pleading for her life, pleading for her mum, and calling Myra Hindley mum, because she just couldn't believe that this was happening to her and this woman was doing it to her. And Myra Hindley was heard very clearly on those audio recordings that were found, telling her to, just put it in your mouth. Just do this, just do that. Participating in this horrible. So she was worse. Horrible person. Both of them horrible. But the only thing that Ian Brady, at least he acknowledged he was horrible. He acknowledged he was a psychopath. He was a very intelligent man. Psychopaths often are intelligent, aren't they? He didn't make any attempt to be released from prison. But he lived quite a long life because, of course, they get looked after. He lived a long life despite smoking like a trooper, going on regular hunger strike. He wanted to die. He probably would have quite liked the death penalty. So this is what I mean. So it's good that he was made to suffer instead. wasn't given, he wanted to die. So sometimes these psychopaths, they do want to die. They just want out of it because it's an easy release. They don't believe in heaven or hell. So they're not scared of what happens when they die because they don't believe in anything. So they're not worried that they're going to be spinning in hell forever. I hope they get a bloody shock when they get there. Another reason for not bringing back the death penalty, because a lot of these psychopaths, they actually want it bringing back, you know. So yeah. Now, yeah, Kelly, in jail they should be allowed no vices. Yeah, like smoking. Why should they be allowed to smoke? But then there's another thing, you know, you've got to think, well, what they're going to do? I don't know what they're going to do. Just sit in a cell and look at the wall. That's what they do in Spain if they're on a life sentence. There's a British serial killer who's in prison in, I think it's in Alicante at the moment. He apparently just sits in, he goes out for 1 hour every day for some exercise, um, but he's in solitary confinement, just sits there looking at the wall, more or less. Yeah, and that's what we hope for them, you know, but they don't do they? They get PlayStations and televisions, and I mean, you know, because then there's also this thing about us, you know, we are not them. That's the thing we have to remember. If we become as cruel as them, we're just as bad as them, you know. So we have to set ourselves apart from these people. Um, you know, and I know there's all the human rights for the prisoner. I don't care about the human rights for the prisoner, but I don't know what the answer is, because also it costs a lot of money to keep people in prison. You know, so there's that aspect of it as well, the financial aspect, you know. So also, David, you're saying there's no cigarettes now in jails, but they get drugs. So I'm sure they get cigarettes, contraband. They use drones in Manchester at Strange Ways Prison, probably at other prisons. Uh, Things are sent in drones and dropped into the yard, and I mean, you know, I think people will always find, and you'll get prison guards will help that, because they probably don't get paid a lot. You know, these horrible prisons, you probably don't get paid much, and you've got to deal with all this shit from these horrible people. As somebody offers you, you know, I don't know, £1,000 or whatever to just smuggle a pack of cigarettes to someone. Well, they're going to do that, aren't they? So, okay, where are we going now? So, I know, sorry, I ended up waffling about Pierpoint then and what have you, but yeah. So there's been no death penalty in the UK, no execution since 1964. That's a long time, isn't it? It's almost my lifespan. Well, it's a bit less, I think, than my life. Anyway, you know, I can't add up. And of course, a lot of people still call out, as David said there, you know, Pierpoint himself, the executioner, he said that he didn't think the death penalty made any difference. I don't think when people are murdering someone, especially if they're psychos, you know, I don't think they can control the fact they're going to kill someone. They're going to kill someone whether there's a death penalty or not. You've got the death penalty in a lot of states in America, but it doesn't stop murders, does it? So I don't think the death penalty stops people killing other people. But I do think the death penalty probably makes the families of the victims feel a little bit better. You know, I mean, it's never going to bring back their loved one, but there's that. That's one of the cons of the death penalty. That sense of absolute justice. You know, that people should suffer as they've made their family member suffer. That's one. So we're going to look at the pros and cons. But anyway, going back to these monster mansions, let's have a look at them. So we're going to look first of all. Let's see, which one have I got up So monster mansions, these prisons in the UK or in England, they're both in England. We've got prison Wakefield and prison Frankland. So let's have a look at Wakefield. So this is the one that I think gets more publicity than Frankland. So the location, it's in West Yorkshire, Wakefield in West Yorkshire. Now I'm going to share this because I'll put the map up. Well, you wouldn't want to live near it, would you? I mean, I wonder how far away it is from residential places. Because God, imagine if you live near it. Now, the only prison I really know in Spain is the Alicante prison, which is in the midst of a big country. You know, Spain's a big country. There's plenty of room for prisons, to be honest, but there's probably not as many crimes in Spain as there is in the UK. But yeah, if you imagine if you lived near it. So I know Strangeways prison in Manchester is right in the city centre. So I don't think it's near many residential places, but it's right near the shopping centres and everything. Right near Deansgate, which is a very posh part of Manchester. So that's quite interesting, I think, because, yeah, all the time, you know, you're out in Manchester shopping, and there's Strangeways right there near where you are. But anyway, so it's often called the Monster Mansion. It's a Category A men's prison and the largest high security estate in Western Europe. And the facility has housed some of the country's most reviled offenders, including child murderer Kyle Bevan. Now, he's the one who was murdered just recently, and we'll have a look at the CCTV of it. I mean, his killers were just literally wandering around. There was not a prison officer in sight. And he went into his cell. Some people are saying, why did he go into his cell? Because he would have been safer in the corridor. Because, of course, you don't have CCTV in your cell, I don't think. So as soon as he went into his cell, these other men followed him in there. And that's it. Stabbed him God knows how many times. That was the end of him. But, you know, yeah, you feel like no loss. Kyle Bevan murdered a 2-year-old child. So a little girl. So, you know, just, you know, it's a real moral dilemma. You can't feel sorry for him because he murdered a 2-year-old little girl. But it's not right either what these other 3 men did to him as well. So, but a lot of people say, oh yeah, they saved the taxpayer money. Now, these other 3 men who murdered him, see, this is the other problem. They were already on life sentences. So now I think they've been given whole life orders. Thing is, when you give someone a life sentence, especially when they're older, you know, if you're giving someone a 30-odd-year-old sentence and they're already 50, I don't know. Maybe they're thinking, oh, well, I'm probably never going to get out anyway. And then what they do in prison is they go for notoriety. So if they think they're never going to be released from prison until they're sort of too old really to make a difference in society as far as they think. So what they think is, oh, they build their own society in prison, don't they? It's like a sub-society where you've got the people at the top and the people at the bottom, really, haven't you? You know, hi, Louise. Hi, Louise. You know, it's like any society. The prison is a sub-society. So, but of course, it's turned, you know, it doesn't matter how much money you've got in prison or whether you're part of the royal family, except you'll never go to prison if you're part of the royal family. We've seen that with Andrew. You won't see Andrew in Monster Mansion, will you? He won't even go to a normal prison. He's not going to prison. There's definitely one law for them and one law for everybody else. Because if it was my brother or my dad or my son who had committed the crimes that Andrew has committed, he would already be in prison. They're just stringing this out, this Epstein shite, until they're all dead. They'll just keep talking about it. Nobody will ever face accountability. The royal family is rotten to the core. They've protected him for years. This has gone on for donkey's years. Andrew should have been already in prison for ages, and Trumpet. So, it just shows you there are two laws. They talk about two-tier Britain. Well, it definitely is two tiers. If you're in the royal family, nothing ever happens to you. If you're not, you get put in prison. Anyway, that's going off tangent again. So you've got these sub-societies in prison. You've got people at the top. It doesn't matter how much money they've got when they're in prison. It's not about money, is it? It's about status. It's about how scared people are of you. When you go into prison, especially a prison like these two prisons, you have to be strong, because if you're weak, you just get preyed upon in many ways. You'll get bullied, you'll get RAP, not as strong yourself with somebody else who is strong, who people are scared of. That's how people survive in prison, even for short periods of time. Because of course not all prisons people are there for the length of time that these guys are. But, so these also these people that have killed this guy, Kyle Bevan, who's just been killed recently in Wakefield prison, they've got nothing to lose really. And now that they've been given full life tariffs, they've got even less to lose. They're never coming out of prison no matter what they do. So there is an argument that it's not good to give people full life tariffs, because then they don't give a shit what they do, because what you're going to do to them? What more can you do to them if they kill someone or hurt someone or even kill a prison guard? If one of those men now kills a prison guard tomorrow, what are they going to do with him? They can't give him a bigger sentence because they're already on a whole life tariff. That the guy that they nicknamed the Iceman, he's on a full life tariff. So he could go and kill 3 prison guards tomorrow. It won't make any difference, will it? So the only difference it'll make is then, of course, the other prison guards will make his life miserable, I suppose. But, his life is miserable already. So it's a very strange sub-society, isn't it? Anyway, they killed this Kyle Bevan, who killed, as I say, a 2-year-old little girl. Nobody's going to be weeping about him, are they? Nobody's going to be crying. Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about, David. The Iceman, yeah. It was Kyle Bevan that they killed. We'll have a look at the CCTV in a minute. But you see, when I watch this CCTV of them all wandering around this prison, there's not a prison officer in sight. I feel like definitely these prison officers are turning a blind eye. Because where were the prison officers? In all the CCTV that's been released of the murder of Kyle Bevan, there's not a prison officer in sight in a maximum security prison. Just makes you wonder, doesn't it? Anyway, little bit of interesting history about it that came up on AI, and I didn't know this, it's been built a long time. It's an old prison. It was built in 1595. And the nursery rhyme, here we go round the mulberry bush. that is based on this prison, on Wakefield prison, because there's a bush that the prisoners used to do their exercise around, walking around this bush. That here we go round the mulberry bush. I mean, I can't remember the words to it, but it's I didn't know that was based on Wakefield prison, so that's interesting. So that's Wakefield prison. That's probably the monster mansion that is more well known. The other one is Frankland, and this is in County Durham in England. Oh, let's just have a look. So this is Wakefield prison on Google. Google Maps. This is the outside of it. But obviously it'll have been built upon since the 1500s. Presume it's been modernised. But you know, this is it. Is it right in the middle of the, you know, you'd think it'd be sort of right in the countryside. Or this is the Government UK page about it. Where's the map? Oh, book and plan your visit to Wakefield. You must be on that person's visitor list. Book your visit at least 2 days in advance. Have ID with you when you go. At least one visitor must be 18 or older at every visit. So you can take children there then, as long as it's with an adult. Interesting. God, and they can let you know where to stay overnight, meals, how to book official visits. Gosh. So if you want to go and visit, to be honest, like me, I'm not brilliant with geography, as you know. I don't know Yorkshire very well. I haven't been there. I don't think I've ever been. I've probably been to the races there when I worked on the race courses. Can we see this? Anybody who knows that area near Ossett, Heath, Criggleston? I've never heard of these places. So unless you perhaps lived in that area, I'm trying to look for a place that I recognise. Hetmond Wyke, never heard of it. All right, so it's not far from Leeds. So we can put it into a context. So we've got Leeds, Bradford. I do know where they are. I've been to Leeds. Very nice people in Leeds. Lovely people, actually. And that's where Wakefield prison is. So yeah, it does look doesn't look like it's right in the middle of the wilderness, does it? Really? Which is a bit worrying. Anyway, that's where it is. And then Frankland, that's the view from outside Frankland prison, because it's in County Durham, which is a very beautiful area, actually. So that, imagine they're stuck in that prison, but they know that you know, just over the road, look, they've been there. They know they've got this lovely view outside, so good. That must be a bit torture for them. Good. Because they'll know, because I presume they'll see it as they're driven to the prison, unless they're in like a big prison van where you can't really see out, can you? But yeah, that is quite you know, it's a beautiful beautiful view on the other side of the road, isn't it? So sorry, let me just go. Yeah, it's in County Durham, David. That's what I was just saying. Yeah, I'm not sure, Louise, where the other one's gone. John Christie, Monster Dad 2. Let's have a look where he's gone. So he can't have gone to the same prison as the other monster dad, Preston Davey's dads we're talking about. Well, they weren't dads, were they? Murderers, we should say. I don't know which prison he's gone to. He can't have gone to the same one as the other one. Oh, there was talk that it might have gone to Strangeways. There was talk that it might have gone to Strangeways in Manchester. So I'm just going to see if I can find out for sure. The thing is that if you're not having the death penalty, they have to go somewhere, don't they? You've got to find somewhere to keep them for the rest of their. Monster Dad 1 is at Wakefield. He's already. So, Frankland prison. Now, notice I'm trying not to say His Majesty's prison because, you know, I don't like the royal family. So, to me, it's just Frankland prison. I don't do the HM. You know, at the end of the day, his own brother should be in there. So why should I, you know, show respect to our so-called king when his brother should be in one of these facilities? Anyway, so Prison Frankland is in Brasside, County Durham, in England. And it is another one that is dubbed Monster Mansion, Category A prison. But this prison is much more modern. This prison opened in 1983. So don't forget that Wakefield prison was opened in the 1500s. Says, would you like to know more about the living conditions or notorious criminals? Yes, I would. Anyway, I'm going to go into Wikipedia. You get better information. To the AI, they give their sources as Wikipedia. It's quite funny, really. But Wikipedia is still going strong despite AI sort of taking over a lot. So let's have a look at this Wikipedia page about Frankland. Now, it was in Frankland prison that Ian Huntley was murdered. So it's a Category A men's prison in. Oh no, that's Wakefield. No, I'm on the wrong one. I'm on the wrong one. So Huntley, I think he did spend some time in Wakefield. They get moved around a lot from place to place. So if they get attacked, for example, you know, then they might get moved to another one. But there's only so many, you know, Category A prisons, isn't there? You know, so there's a limited number of hotels, if you like, that they can put these horrible people in. Now, I think Ian Huntley in the beginning, wasn't he classed as mentally unstable? It wasn't Broadmoor. I feel like Huntley at some point was in a mental facility, but then he was put in. Then he was put in this Category A, these Category A prisons. So let's see what it says about Frankland. So it's located next to another prison, Prison Low Newton, which is a closed women's prison. So that, because of course we've got open prisons as well. Some people are in open prisons, and they go to open prisons and come out and commit more crimes. But anyway, that's a whole nother story, isn't it? So this prison has been nicknamed Monster Mansion, along with Prison Wakefield, due to the high number of murderers, rapists, and terrorists, of course, imprisoned here. So it opened in 1983. It's increased in size in recent years. So let's see, there's a couple of, who do I want to talk about that's in there? Now this is interesting actually, because In 2024, Steve Gallant, who was a former inmate of Frankland, and he intervened to stop the London Bridge attack in 2019. So here's a guy that at one point was in Frankland prison, which is a high security prison. Don't know what he did. But he said that the balance of power in Frankland has been ceded to Islamist gangs with prison staff failing to sufficiently intervene due to fears of being called racist. But of course, a prison service spokesperson denied those reports. You're always going to get that, aren't you? You get one person saying this is what's happening, and another person saying, no, that's not happening. On the 12th of April 2025, inmate Hashem Abedi, brother of Manchester Arena bomber Salman Abedi, attacked 3 prison officers using hot cooking oil and homemade weapons. The officers suffered burns, scalds and stab wounds and were taken to hospital with life-threatening injuries. On 26th of February 26, and we reported on this, Ian Huntley, a convicted child murderer, was left blinded and suffering from severe head injuries after being attacked in the prison workshop with a spiked metal pole. He ultimately died after having his life support switched off. So other infamous, inmates. So you've got Michael Adebolako, one of 2 terrorists convicted of murdering British Army soldier Lee Rigby. Oh my God, I remember that case. I think we all do, don't we? It was quite a long time ago now. But poor Lee Rigby was murdered, but I remember this guy, Michael Adebolako, he was holding up his bloody knife, wasn't he, taking videos. Diran Barrett, convicted terrorist. Levi Belfield is in Frankland, who's a convicted serial killer who murdered at least 3 young women and teenage girls, including Millie Dowler. I'm surprised. Oh, he's converted to Islam. That's interesting. That makes sense now. If what that guy said is right, that the Islamists in this prison are sort of protecting people, is that why Levi Belfield converted to Islam? Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Is he being protected? Is that because I think that's what you have to do. When you're in prison for these sort of offences, if you're not strong enough to defend yourself, or you haven't got enough clout to defend yourself, you have to join up with people who do. So it's just making me think now about Levi Belfield converting to Islam. He's the least person you would expect to convert to Islam. He was a gypsy, wasn't he? He was from a gypsy family. What's he converting to Islam for? But that makes sense. Has he converted to Islam because he gets more protection that way? So I'm surprised nothing's ever happened to him. Who else is in there? Oh, here's another one. Damien Bendel. He's a convicted mass murderer and child rapist. So he murdered his girlfriend and her children. And as one of her children, a little girl, was dying, he RAPED'd her. I've done a video about him. Real nice people in this prison. David Bieber, American convicted murderer of police officer Ian Broadhurst. Peter Chapman, convicted kidnapper, rapist and murderer of 17-year-old Ashley Hall. Yeah, he is a right. I mean, they're all horrible, of course they are, but I don't know if you remember that case. This was a catfishing case. Peter Chapman, he pretended to be a young boy, a teenage boy, very handsome, created a false profile, found Ashley Hall online, started an online relationship with her all the time. She thought he was a young handsome guy messaging her, and they had like an online relationship for a while. And then they arranged to meet up. And he said to her, "Oh, my dad's going to come and pick you up." So, pretending to be this young lad, he messaged poor Ashley and said, "Oh, my dad's coming to get you." So when Ashley left the house and this middle-aged man was in the car, she thought it was her boyfriend's dad, her online boyfriend's dad. I don't know when she found out the truth. Maybe, hey, when she messaged him to say, "Oh, your dad's just picked me up," and his phone pinged. It's terrible. And you know what he did? And he had previous offences as well. He was a person who should never have been let out the first time he did anything, though he hadn't murdered anyone before, or as far as we know. After he killed, he abused her, he murdered her, he dumped her body, and then he went to the police station and confessed. He just wanted to do that one last time. That's how it felt. He knew he would get caught. He just rocked up to the police station and said, "Oh, I've just murdered a teenage girl." Twat. David Copeland, convicted bomber and murderer who committed the 1999 London nail bombings. Wayne Couzens. Yeah, I'm surprised he's not been attacked so far, because the thing about him is he is a policeman as well. So you think people would be after him. Maybe he's converted to Islam as well. Mark Dixie. I think most of you will know the case of Sarah Everard. She was walking home during lockdown, walking from a friend's house, and Wayne Couzens, he's a policeman. He wasn't on duty that night. He stopped her, convinced that she was breaking the law. He was going to take her to the police station because she shouldn't have been out that night. Put handcuffs on her, showed her his badge, put handcuffs on her, got her in his car, and that was it. Took her off somewhere and murdered her. So that was a big case, wasn't it? If you can't trust the police, who can you trust? And some idiot Tory MP said, "Oh, if you're ever in that position, you should flag down a bus." So he's in there. Mark Dixie, British serial rapist and convicted murderer of 18-year-old Sally Ann Bowman. This guy is a piece of a chef. After he murdered Sally Ann, he'd been sort of prowling the streets that night looking for a victim. He saw Sally Ann, who was a model, absolutely gorgeous, stunning girl, being dropped off by her boyfriend at home, and they were arguing. So Sally sort of stormed off, and her boyfriend drove off in a huff. And this Mark Dixie, he was lying in wait, and he got Sally before she was literally in her front garden, just getting out of the car and walking up the path to her house. And he RAPD'd her, he murdered her, and then he fled to Australia, where he committed more crimes in Australia. And it was only when he came back to the UK, and he was caught in a really strange way. I think he was caught like for a misdemeanor type crime, like fighting at a football game or something like that. And that's when his DNA, because by then DNA had come out, his DNA was matched, and he was matched to the murder of Sally Ann and also a series of rapes. John Duffy, British serial rapist and killer. I'm not sure what he did. Was John Duffy the bullseye killer? I'm not sure. David Fuller, English double murderer and prolific necrophiliac. Benjamin Green, nurse convicted of killing 2 patients and causing grievous bodily harm to 15 others. Delroy Grant, serial rapist and burglar. I think he was the one that attacked old people. Daniel Khalifa, former British Armed Forces soldier, convicted of spying for Iran. Oh, do you remember him? He's that young lad. He escaped from prison Wandsworth, didn't he, underneath a laundry truck or something. So he's now in the category A prison. Thomas Mair, who murdered Labour MP Jo Cox in June 2016. Stuart Morgan, who raped and murdered French woman Celine Figard in 1995. Colin Norris, a nurse who murdered four elderly patients and attempted to murder two others. Hussein Osman, Islamic terrorist, who placed an explosive at a tube station in London in 2005. Anthony Russell, spree killer, who killed 3 people in October 2020, and is also accused of he's one of the people that murdered Ian Huntley. Muzika Shah murdered police officer Sharon Beshevinsky during an armed robbery in 2005. So there's a lot of there's a mixed bag in there, isn't there? You could say like terrorists, murderers, rapists, there's political murders like with Jo Cox. I suppose you'd call that a political murder. I don't know, but and who else is in there? Irfan Sharif, convicted of murdering his 10-year-old daughter following a campaign of physical and psychological abuse. Now, it's funny that I was reading about him yesterday, and it was saying that he was being protected in prison because, of course, he was attacked. He was in a different prison and he was attacked, wasn't he, with a tuna can lid. And now he's been put here. And I was reading that he was being protected by these Islamic terrorist prisoners. But you know what? Why aren't they attacking him? Because anyway, how could you protect someone like Irfan Sharif after what he did to Sarah? Michael Stone, convicted of murdering Lynn and Megan Russell and attempting to murder Josie Russell in 1996. And Charles Taylor, a war criminal, sentenced by the Special Court for Sierra Leone but for crimes against humanity. It's like you say, Louise, a right motley crew, all kinds of different people. Now, this one's interesting. Charles Bronson, the criminal known as the most violent prisoner in Britain and Britain's most notorious prisoner. Now, he's not in this prison anymore, but this guy, he never killed anyone. He is a violent man. I'm not saying he's a saint. He's not. But he never murdered anyone. He never RAPED'd anyone. He's still in prison. He applied to come out, didn't he? Because he's very ill and he wanted to see his mum, I think, before he died or whatever. Anyway, they won't let him out. He'll never get let out. He'll be like the great train robber, Ronnie Biggs and that. You do crimes against the establishment, you'll be in prison forever. Oh, yeah, you can murder a 2-year-old and you might get 18 years or something. This is, it's all wrong with the system. Anyway, Ian Huntley and some others that I don't necessarily know their cases. Oh, Peter Sutcliffe, he was in this prison. Peter Sutcliffe, the Yorkshire Ripper, of course, he's died now, hasn't he? He died not that long ago. They normally live quite long lives because they get looked after. Now, this was something that I wanted to mention. So Harold Shipman, I think he killed himself in Wakefield prison. Imagine. Now, I just thought you'd think these prisons are haunted as well. Because, if you believe in that sort of thing, Harold Shipman and Fred West hung themselves in prison, didn't they? Lots of people have, lots of offenders have. Now, Harold Shipman, he killed hundreds of people, didn't he? Hundreds and hundreds of people. Imagine if you were put in his cell where he did it. Imagine that. I'd be doing a seance. I would never be in there because I'm not going to murder all the people I'd have to murder to get into the prison. But, just interesting isn't it? Do you think he haunts the prison? Let's see where he actually did it. Yeah, prison Wakefield. So, Wakefield in West Yorkshire, England. He was found on January the 13th, 2004, just one day before his 58th birthday. Imagine being put in his cell where he killed himself. I think they tell them. I expect they do. So we're going to put you in Shipman's old cell. We're going to put you in Shipman's old cell where you'd be shitting yourself, wouldn't you? Yeah, put you in your new cell. This is where Harold Shipman unalived himself. God, you wouldn't be able to sleep at night, would you? I'd be having a seance. Yeah, Kelly, 58. Do you know what? Because Harold Shipman, he looked like, look, you can see on this picture of him. I don't know if you can see that properly. There is a picture of him up there. Harold Shipman looked old from when he was 30, really, didn't he? You know, this is it, people's lives showing the way they look, don't they? 58 years old, looks like he's about 80. You know? Yeah. You're like, now where did Fred West kill himself? Just out of interest as well. He's another one. Fred West. I don't know if Fred West was on remand when he took his own life. But yeah, or imagine being in the prison cell where Ian Watkins was murdered, or the guy just recently was murdered. They were murdered in cells in Wakefield prison. So imagine being in there. You know, it's like, oh, this is where Ian Watkins died. This is where Harold Shipman took his own life. Over in America there, imagine if you're in Jeffrey Epstein's cell where he's supposed to have taken his own life. Where did Fred West die? Fred West died in Birmingham prison. So, of course, Fred West, part of another notorious sort of, Brady and Hindley. You've got the Wests. You've got now this, Monster Dad 1 and Monster Dad 2, the dads of Preston Davey. People do it together, don't they? I just can't imagine. I often think about Fred West. So he did it in January as well, on the 1st of January 1995 he did it. We don't know, did they do it, or did the prison guards have anything to do with their deaths? I mean, he was a coward. I was watching a true crime podcast where they're saying that psychopaths rarely kill themselves. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Because they're normally so full of their own importance. But the other thing, of course, is sometimes they do it because they cannot face justice. They cannot face it. You've got someone like Harold Shipman, the doctor. He was, used to being respected and everyone thinking he was above them and that. And now when it was found out that actually he was just a nasty serial killer, he couldn't cope with that blow to his ego, could he? Fred West, I'm not sure why he did it. I suppose same thing, just couldn't face it. He knew he was never going to be released. And he just left Rose, didn't he, to sort of, I mean, not that I feel sorry for Rose, she's a bitch as well, but just left her to it, really, didn't he? Yeah. So he died in Birmingham prison. Took his own life. So yeah, again, imagine being, yeah. You should put the worst offenders shouldn't you? Those monster dads. The worst offenders should go in the cells of the people that have killed themselves and be told that it's haunted by them. You know, because the thing is, oh, can you imagine Monster Dad 1? The murderer, the one who's got the whole life tariff, drama queen, being told that he was going into Harold Shipman's cell, where Harold Shipman killed himself. Oh my God, he'd be ringing his mom, they've put me in Harold Shipman. Oh, Mom, it's been haunted, Mom, help. Yeah, put him in Harold Shipman's. Can't equate working at Ladbrokes with prison. But I tell you, sometimes you did get threatened. I was working in a shop in Reading once, and this guy was a taxi driver. And he wanted a price on a horse anyway. It had changed. The price had changed. You can't give someone a price that doesn't exist anymore. And he was going mad at me, mad. And this guy, he had scars all over his face. He was terrifying. God, if I wouldn't have gotten his taxi, he would have ever stopped to pick me up, even not knowing who he was. He was called Fred, I think, as well, funnily enough. And anyway, I stood my ground. He said he would slit my throat. Honestly, things he was accusing me of, shouting at me, threatening me. I'll slit your throat. Who do you think you are? Blah, de, blah, de, blah. I don't know why I didn't go to the police, actually. Anyway, he was having a go at me, but you have got glass, you know, in front of you in the shop. Anyway, a couple of days later, I'm going to the post office with the money. When I think about it now, you used to have to go to the post office, take the money that you'd taken in the betting shop. How on your own? I mean, how dangerous is that? You used to have to take it to the post office and put it in. So it's not, they didn't send a security van around. Well, money, maybe they do now, I don't know, but they didn't then. There's little old me trotting off to the post office. And as I'm in the queue for the post office, who walks in behind me but Fred, the taxi driver, who's threatened to slit my throat. Oh my God. I was terrified, but I didn't show it. I mean, that's it. You can't show that you're terrified. So I just looked at him. He came up to me and he put his arm around me. And he said, I'm so sorry about the other. I shouldn't have said those things. I'm not barred, am I? Because, of course, he got barred. You know, you say you can't come back in this betting shop anymore. Please unbar me. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have done it. I can't apologise enough. I don't know what came over me. I was just like... But when he reached out his arm to put on my shoulder, I thought he could have slit my throat. That's what he threatened to do. So I forgot why I started talking about this now. You know how I go off on a waffle. Waffle. You have to stand up for yourself, even though you are terrified, because you know if they can smell fear on you, that's it. But I always stuck up for myself. You have to stick up for yourself, because you show any sign of weakness, that's the worst thing you can do. Sadly, but it's quite scary. You shouldn't have to do that. You shouldn't have to go to work and get threatened, especially, you know, it wasn't as if, you know, you expect it, I suppose, if you're a policeman or a prison officer. You're working as a manageress in Ladbrokes, you don't expect to get threatened, do you? So, yeah, just wanted to look at these two monster mansions. Oh, so that's right. So I wanted to show you the murder. Well, you don't see the actual murder, but the recent murder of Kyle, what's his name? Can't remember his name. It's good that I can't remember his name, except I've got to look it up on here, because we don't want to remember him. We don't want to remember him, do we? He doesn't matter. He was a murderer. He got what he deserved, of course. People that murdered, the three guys that murdered him, they look terrifying. You know, I mean, it must be terrifying in these places. I'll tell you what, Monster Dad 1, he's going to absolutely shit himself in this place. Because he is just such a spoiled man baby. How's he going to cope dealing with these men? I mean, I'm not feeling sorry for him. I'm just, giving the opinion. But let's imagine. Oh my God, terrifying, isn't it? So these are the guys. Let me put it on a bigger. They look pretty scary, don't they? So 3 men, of course, as well. So, to be fair, he didn't stand much of a chance against 3, did he? So they've been given whole life orders, these 3 men. This one in the middle here, he looks like he's had an eye put out. Let's see what it says. So this is only a day ago they were given whole life orders. I mean, they were already in prison. They're not saints. Do you know what I mean? This is the thing, the code in prison. They're bad people already. They were murderers. Oh my God, oh my God. Jesus. So the thing is, they're already in prison for murder, but I think, well, anyway, one of these is the Iceman. I think it's this one, I'm not sure. But, God, they look scary, don't they? So, it's like they've got to a point where they're in prison for life anyway. So their only life now is to make themselves even more notorious. So they've been given whole life orders, but they'll be like the King Dicks of the prison now, won't they? They're like the kings. Nobody's going to mess with them at all because they've got nothing to lose now. They're never coming out. They could kill anyone. They could kill a prison officer. They could kill a psychologist that goes to interview them. They've got nothing to lose now, have they? Nothing to lose whatsoever. And they look absolutely, well, that particularly the 2 on the right, the one on the left doesn't look so scary. But look at them. Oh my God, imagine that being the last face you see. Well, good, because the guy that they killed, he had killed a little girl, so he deserved it, of course. So 3 jailed men who murdered a fellow inmate by stabbing him 25 times in his cell will never be released from prison. Mark Fellows, 45, David Taylor, 64, and Lee Newell, 57. Well, they've all had hard paper rounds, haven't they? Do you know what I mean? God, I'm scared just looking at them. I'm terrified just looking at these men. So Fellows and Newell were already serving whole life orders for previous convictions. And now Judge Mrs. Justice McGowan has imposed new and separate life terms for them at Leeds Crown Court. Well, how many life terms can you give someone? How many life terms can you give someone? Only one. You've only got one life. So Taylor was given a whole life order for Bevan's murder on top of the offences he was on remand for. He was only on remand. Bevan, 33, was serving a life sentence with a minimum tariff of 28 years for murdering his partner's 2-year-old daughter, Lola. So little Lola, 2 years old, he murdered her. So you can't feel sorry for him, can you? Now, he's only 33. Bloody hell. 33? Oh my God. Anyway, he's not going to get to 34 now, is he? So good. So he was serving a life sentence with a minimum tariff of 28 years. Doesn't seem like enough to me. So Charles Bronson never murdered anyone, never RAPED'd anyone, but he's gone against the establishment all his life. They won't let him out, even though he's elderly and dying. They won't let him out. But you can murder a 2-year-old little girl and only get 28 years. Something wrong, isn't there? So the court heard how fellows Taylor and Newell were seen on CCTV at about 17:30, following him into his cell, and they cornered him. And they emerged less than 5 minutes later in a satisfied, job done mood. Now, you know, they're going to... Oh, that's right. Hi, Dominic. Yeah, 28 times it says here they stabbed him. And they left him in the bed and they covered him over with a sheet. He was found the next morning. Wasn't even found straight away. So, I mean, this is supposed to be a high security prison. What, they don't check that people are alive before they turn the lights out? You know, this is what makes me think the prison officers maybe aided this a bit. You're telling me that in a high security prison, they don't check that prisoners are alive before they turn the lights out? That they put Bevan into bed to give the impression he was asleep. His death remained undetected till the following morning. The judge said that Fellows was seen near Bevan's cell twice that evening, probably to check he was dead. Where were the prison officers? You know, I don't feel sorry for this guy. I'm not saying, but do you see what I'm saying? How can you, in a high security prison, you don't even check that the prisoners are alive before I don't know. So, you wounded him more than 25 times, the judge said. And there were congratulations when you returned to your own landing. Well, I'll tell you what, these men, well, they might be separated now or put in solitary confinement of whatever, but tell you there'll be people out for Preston Davey's monster murderer, won't they? The one that he will have to be segregated or he's going to be killed. He's going to be killed. So the judge said there were congratulations when you returned to your own landing. Word had spread, so they say they get celebrated as heroes. That's all they've got now. Their life. They are now in the pecking order of prison. They are right at the top. Fellows tried to dispose of his blood-stained trousers. All three of you had blood on your shoes, and all of you had killed before. Look at them there. That it does look. It's terrifying. So this Newell was jailed for murder in 1989 after strangling his female neighbour, who was in her 50s, after she refused to give him money. So, he's not exactly a nice person, is he? Then he was given a whole life order in 2013 after killing a prisoner who had murdered a child. So he's now killed 2 prisoners in his bed, with a chilling similarity to the circumstances of Bevan's death. Fellows committed 2 gangland murders and was given a whole life term. You're more likely to get a whole life term if you've done a gangland murder than if you've murdered a bloody child. He shot notorious crime figure Paul Massey, 55, with an Uzi submachine gun outside his Salford home in 2015. And he killed mob fixer John Kinsella, 53, from Liverpool 3 years later. And Taylor, who had recently been transferred to prison Wakefield, was also sentenced on Friday for the murder of 24-year-old Alicia Apostolov-Boyarin, a vulnerable woman he had been in a relationship with. So this is what we have to remember. They're not saints, these people. This twat, he's murdered a 24-year-old woman. So he's going to be making out he's some hero because he's murdered a child killer, but he is a murderer himself of a vulnerable woman, not a gangland murderer, which, gangland at the end of the day, murder is wrong, whatever, but probably those people that were murdered in the gangland case, they probably murdered people. And then the first person, look at what he'd done. He murdered his neighbour, his 50-odd-year-old neighbour, because she wouldn't give him any money. She'd probably been really nice to him. Maybe she'd given him money loads of times and she just didn't have any money that day. So that's what we must remember. These are not heroes. They are not nice people. So poor Alicia from Ashton-under-Lyne, Greater Manchester, was reported missing by her family in February 2022, and her body has never been found. So yeah, these are not heroes. These are not heroes. Oh, look what else he did. So he was this Taylor. He was remanded into custody, awaiting trial for her murder. He told police he had fresh information on her whereabouts. And so Detective Constable Darren Bratby visited him at prison Frankland in Durham. Taylor took an improvised weapon and stabbed the officer in the chest during the meeting in a prison interview room, narrowly missing his heart and leaving him with serious injuries. Oh, he is an absolute twat, isn't he? He's like Hannibal Lecter. He needs to be kept in a place like the Silence of the Lambs. So he deliberately enticed that policeman, that detective constable, enticed him to visit him, saying that he was going to say where her body was, and then attacked him and stabbed him. Oh my God. Oh my God. So yeah, these men are not heroes. They're vile men. They're just as vile as him, really. Look at him. So who was that? They said it was it, who did they say did that? Was it Taylor? Yeah, Taylor. That's him. So Taylor's this one here. Horrible. This is the guy that murdered the first guy, Mark Fellows. Is he the one that, oh my God, I've got completely confused. They're all just as bad as each other. So one of them murdered his neighbour because she won't give him money. One of them has done gangland murders. And the other one has murdered a vulnerable 24-year-old and then enticed a detective sergeant to visit him in prison, saying he's got information about the whereabouts of her body, which he's never told anyone where she is, and stabbed him. Nice people. Nice people not. So yeah, it's important to remember they are not heroes. They are not heroes at all. Here's the video. Right, let's have a look at the video. Now you see that what I say is true. Where are the prison guards? Now what I'm thinking is, if this is a maximum security prison, the Monster Mansion, and you can't see a prison guard in, so here they are. Look, where's the prison guards? This is a maximum security prison. Is that him coming? Who's that coming? See, all the other prisoners would just be like, oh, just stay away. Just stay away, because they won't get involved, because it'd be them next. Wouldn't it? So look, this is his victim, this little 2-year-old Lola James. So we're not going to cry any tears over Carl Bevan, are we? But he's a piece of shit himself. But anyway, look at these three. Oh my God. Ooh, give you the creeps, don't they? Especially that first one. Looks like they just look terrifying. So it says here, the trial heard there was a lot of tension in the prison at the time, with 2 other serious assaults in the weeks leading up to Bevan's murder. So, Preston Davey's dad, who's gone to that prison, he will be absolutely shitting himself. I haven't seen a prison officer yet. Where, I mean, you could think how they allow, if that's a maximum security prison. Oh, of course, yeah, he was stabbed to death. Ian Watkins, again, nobody's going to cry over him, except maybe his mum, I don't know. He RAPD'd a baby. Oh, so jurors heard that unlike other prisons, Wakefield did not separate vulnerable inmates from the general prison population. Gosh, imagine if Preston Davey's dad turns up there, and he murderer dad, he's not even separated from vulnerable. He's not even separated from the general. He's not going to last 5 minutes, is he? I'll bet. So apparently Bevan he spent most time in his cell on his own and asked to be locked inside. I bet he did. So I think that's Bevan there. That green arrow, that's Bevan. And look, he goes up there, he looks back, but then he goes into his cell. Now, he shouldn't really have gone, I'm not sorry that they've killed him, really, but why did he go into his cell? Because you are vulnerable in your cell because you're out of sight then. And I presume you can't lock your cell door from the inside. I would imagine that only the prison guards can lock the door. How he won't be able to go in there, shut the door and put a bolt across, would he? You're not allowed to do that. See how he looks back? He knows. Look, he knows, and he goes in there. He goes in there. He's him in. There you go. And that's the end of him. And this guy who walks past, he's not going to say anything, is he? No one's going to raise the alarm. But do you see what I'm saying? I haven't seen one prison guard during this whole video. Where's the prison guards? They're laughing and joke. What do they laugh and joke about? You can't imagine the conversations these people have between them. Laughing and joking about murdering people, probably. Scary men. There he is. He knows. God. Yeah, and whoever that guy is walking past. So they attacked him, stabbed him 25 times with makeshift weapons, including a piece of metal taken from the back of a television. Then they tucked him up in bed to make him look like he was sleeping before leaving him to bleed out. He was not discovered until the following morning when prison staff were tipped off by an inmate. What? So he wasn't even found by the prison staff. They had to be tipped off. Don't they check on them at all? I can't believe that they didn't check on this guy. They just left him there in bed, dying and then dead, and they didn't even check on him in the morning. It was an inmate that tipped him off. How weird. How weird their whole thing is. It does make you think, are the prison officers sort of in on this? Because where were they? This is the point I'm trying to make is this is a maximum security prison, so it's going to be even laxer in other prisons. And there wasn't a prison officer in sight there, and then he wasn't checked. How? I don't mean for his security, but how do you not check on anyone from 6 o'clock the evening before, not even in the next morning? People in the he could have escaped. He could have murdered someone. He could have hung himself. How do you not check? Weird to me. Anyway, there's Lola that he murdered, so there she's got a bit of extra justice there. Of course, it doesn't bring her back, does it? Doesn't bring her back, poor little thing. I mean, they needn't have bothered with the trial, really, had they? Because they deliberated for less than 3 hours. They've got a bloody video there showing them going into the room, so into the cell. So I'm surprised they didn't plead guilty, really. Why didn't they plead guilty? Maybe they wanted it to be talked about. Thing is, they want the notoriety, don't they? They want the notoriety because that is all they've got. So there you go. Let me know what you think. What do we think about prison justice? Is it welcome? Or is it wrong? What do we think about it? What do we think about it? I can't decide, really. It's sort of, you can't feel sorry for them, but it's not right that these prisoners are going around just doing what they feel like. And at the end of the day, they are assuaging their bloodlust. It's like if you put a serial killer in prison, that's the way they can carry on killing people, isn't it?